The great earthquake shook. Stunning oppression strikes. In the air, a terrifying demon pressure approached, and the terrifying aura quickly radiated, sweeping thousands of miles around, covering this area. Ha ha ha, these three are so smart, jump into the pit by themselves. Who says it's not, brothers, rush in with me, and catch turtles in an urn. Countless stubborn sounds resounded, followed by a large area of coercion. Raging the earth, entering the 10,000 devils' cave. For a time, the howling of war horses and the powerful impact sound generated by iron hooves trampling on the ground were like rolling thunder boiling, and they came inch by inch. In a short moment, the black shadow of the black pressure, like a tide, arrived and approached. Thousands of demons repaired the door, and the rolling and violent demonic pressure conflicted and intertwined with each other, faintly seemed to be able to fight the heavens and the earth. 1, 2, 3. Tens of thousands. In the cave, under Su Xianyue's perception, she found that there were tens of thousands of coming demon cultivators, all of whom were martial god realm powerhouses. And most of them are the same as the rumors in the outside world, all martial kings and martial emperor-level powerhouses. Her eyes were slightly solemn. Martial god realm cultivation is a level higher than Gongzi. And this big level also contains 6 major realms, and each big realm has 9 small realms. June, let me say, what are you guys good about? You want to secretly rescue Chu Shui and Chen Song. Okay, leave your life here. In the crowd of demon cultivators, a demon cultivator who rode a war horse walked out. There was no flesh and blood on his face, not even a trace of flesh and blood on his body, and his body was full of bones, like a walking skeleton. And the war horse under the crotch raised its head and neighed, and the sound wave shook around. This was actually a skeleton horse. Skeleton horses, as the name suggests, have become skeleton horses, but still retain the strength of their lives, which is to cultivate the demon Tao to the extreme. Even if the body dies, it will not fall. Big brother, why do you have to talk nonsense with him? The magic knife in my hand can't help but drink human blood. Another demon cultivator walked out, his jaw open and close to speak. He also only had bones, like a walking skeleton. And at this time, Lear also saw clearly that these thousands of demon cultivators were all skeletons, as if the hell demons were out of the cage. And the visual senses were extremely terrifying. Gongzi, are you sure? Su Lianyue turned her head to look at Su Chang'e. The gap between the two sides was too big, and the gap in numbers was too big, which she found quite difficult. Without waiting for Su Chang'e to speak, she crossed her sword forward and said in a deep voice, "Little sister, I block them, you are fast, take Gongzi to go first." A look of parting flashed in Xiaoyu's eyes, but he quickly regained his composure and said, "Sister Mercy, let's go together." Panic. Su Chang'e said lightly, "Their physical body is damaged, and they do not die, then today, I will let them return to hell forever." A big knife, points to the sky, burst out with endless sharp kills. It was the green dragon moon saber. I laughed from the horizontal knife to the sky, and went to keep the liver and gallbladder to Kunlun. Demon Xiao, and dares to take my martial saint sword. In the Middle Ages, martial Saint Guanyin fought for a long time to make the green dragon slash the moon and slash the immortal king with one sword. Now, the martial king, the martial emperor, under this sword, are like ants. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2AA54Z8B. Martial Saint? Ha ha ha, Martial Saint and his old man, Shenlong, can't see the end of the head. You kid's crazy tone, can it be that he has obtained his inheritance? You still want me to pick you up? Then you pick me up and shoot me first. The demon cultivator led by him burst out of blood-devouring wildness, wielding a golden spear, which he used when he killed people, and it was stained with the blood of the endless righteous path, and under the eyes of the shot, the space was collapsing, cracking thousands of cracks like cliffs. Faced with this axe, Suchanga did not talk nonsense, shouted, and cut out with a knife. Boom! A streak of knife light burst out, driving sparks to shoot, lightning flickering, ringing, and electric flint slashed fiercely on the golden gun. The big gun exploded on the spot, shattering and disappearing. And the power of the sword light is not reduced by half a point, the power is full, and it moves forward. This demon Xiao and the skeleton horse under the crotch let out a scream at the same time, followed by the spatula light, and instantly a clicking sounded. Broken bones splashed, only a pool of bone powder fell on the ground. And the bone powder also burst instantly, turning into white fireworks, which seemed to be interpreting the brilliance of that moment. Not good. This is Martial Saint Moon Saber. He really carries the martial saint lineage. Walk, go, go. The faces of the demon cultivators changed in shock, exclaimed, turned their heads in a hurry, and fled towards the coming road. The sound of war horses trampling the ground with iron hooves rose again. But this time it didn't last long, and it fell into nothingness. The split sword light pressed horizontally, like the true body of a martial saint in person, releasing the indestructible sword intent. There were also fireworks splashing, a series of sonic booms sounded in the air, and then there was the sound of bone explosion. Bone powder exploded all over the sky, scattered and fell, like destruction and decay. Skeleton horses and tens of thousands of skeleton demon cultivators were slashed alive under this indestructible knife intent, turning into pools of bone powder one after another. And the power of that knife has not weakened, it has been pushed horizontally to the outside, splitting the entire Dead Blood Mountain range, turning it into two halves, falling to the ground in a cross-section, and the splashing earth is a mess, and the power contained in this knife is finally exhausted and slowly dissipated. Xiaoyu and Lear were dumbfounded. Is this the strength of Gongzi? The knife intent is horizontal, pushing horizontally, more terrifying than the knife at sea last night. The Dead Blood Mountain range stretched for nearly 10,000 li, and at this moment it was split by Xingxing, cracked into a canyon above, and split into an abyss below, changing the landscape here. Without waiting for the two to come back to their senses, Su Changxinger waved his palm and grabbed a magic repair. This demon cultivator's jaws were closed one by one, struggling hard, leaving only the last trace of divine soul to maintain. Tell me, where is De Luo Tian demon, where is Chu Shui? I will give you a pain. In the Naren's tomb, Mo Xiao spat out a sentence, completely unable to hold on, and his head tilted his breath. Su Chang'e smashed him with a kick and said, Xiaoyu, go to the Nalong tomb. The three of them just walked on their front feet, and the void on their back feet arrived one after another, and behind them were the 30,000 disciples who descended like heavenly soldiers, all of them swept with terrifying coercive fluctuations. On the left side of the Qingyun Peak Lord, Yi Qingyao lowered her head and looked at the ruined ruins below, and her pupils showed deep incredulity. The other 8 peak masters, as well as the disciples behind them, all looked down stunned, their faces twitched fiercely twice, and their hearts were greatly shocked. P.S. It's 7:40 in the morning, it's updated relatively early today, and it's Updated in advance, you guys who want to grab the first big shouldn't blame me, right? It is clearly said that it is updated on time at 9 o'clock every morning, but I update almost in advance every day, so that you can't grab the first place. Will you blame me? This. What a powerful knife to destroy the entire mountain range, achieve canyons and abysses. After a long time, a peak lord sighed. It's not that he doesn't see it, it's really such a knife, which is really rare in the outside world. A knife split the Wanzhong mountain range into ruins. Is there such a powerful person in the outside world? Yi Qingyao's pupils were solemn, and she felt that things might not be as simple as usual. The disciples behind him were all speechless for a while. They had been cultivating in the hidden world great sect for so long, and they thought that they would already be invincible in the world when they went out. But they didn't expect that a mysterious person in the outside world would overtake them casually, which was really difficult for them to accept. For a while, the 30,000 disciples looked at each other in disbelief. The peak lord of Qingyun Peak was also looking at the ruins below at this time. His pupils showed surprise, and he shook his head and said, "It's a pity that I didn't see me, otherwise the seat will pull him and let him worship under my seat." Du Sihai suddenly guessed, could it be that he is a disciple in our sect? Huh? As soon as these words came out, everyone's hearts moved, and they were shocked. Don't say it, it's very possible. That's right, apart from my Tai Xian Dao sect, this seat can't think of anyone in the outside world who can burst out such a sword, except for some hidden old monsters. But which disciple is it? Let's not say who he is, sweeping the 10,000 demon cave with his own strength, this kind of strength. At the very least, it has to be the inner door level. I don't know which peak lord is under the seat. There is such a disciple, he should be going crazy now. The peak master of Zizhu Peak suddenly shouted, which of your high-ranking disciples is out of the gate? Say it to let everyone know, don't hide and hang everyone's appetite. However, the 9 peaks peak lord all looked at each other for a while, and they all read from each other's eyes that they didn't know. Seeing this scene, the main mouth of Zizhu Peak twitched, and there were a group of people in the secret road. Bingyu waved her hand and said, "Don't forget to get down to business, are we late again?" As soon as these words came out, everyone immediately talked about business. And they all patted their thighs and said, "Yes, this demon cave has been stabbed flat, don't we come for nothing?" But another peak lord said, "I haven't seen the body of the great Luo heavenly demon, and as for Chu Shui, I haven't seen it. Could it be that this place is the same as the lost ruins?" Bing. You sneered. It turns out that this place is empty again, presumably de Luo Tianma is going around in circles with us. Circling is also white. Du Sihai also sneered. What kind of thing is he thinking that he can escape the pursuit and killing of me and others by going around in circles? As soon as he said this, a flash of light suddenly flashed in his mind, and he remembered something. The disciple who pushed the 10,000 devils cave was. Don't waste time, quickly sense where the great Luo heavenly demon is. Bing. You said coldly. Hearing this, Du Sihai didn't think much about it, closed his eyes, and an extremely vast and terrifying divine thought erupted from his body, sweeping across the land of Zhongzhou inch by inch. It didn't take long. Naren's tomb. Du Sihai opened his eyes, and a fine light flashed in his pupils. Don't waste time, go. Everyone turned into a flash of light and left. Not long after they left, in the rear, Huang Jiulong came running huffing, sweating profusely, panting heavily, his face and neck flushed, and said, "I'm tired, but I'm tired." His wound had just healed, and he couldn't lift his strength, so Feng was only halfway through the team and was finally catching up. Fortunately, he could still see the figure of the last disciple, and he hurriedly took a deep breath and hushed after him. The Tomb of Naren. Located in the extreme north of the Zhongzhou province, collectively known as the North Pole, it is hundreds of millions of miles away from the 10,000 Demon Cave, which is extremely far away. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2AA54Z8b. According to legend, there is a large tomb transformed by the fall of the ancient dragon, and its bones are buried in it, which has undergone the changes of the Middle Ages and the ancient times, and was buried by wind and sand, making this tomb. Master, it's here. With a whisper, Xiaoyu fell into the clouds, and the two people on his body walked in. Su Chonga looked up and saw that this place was a dragon-shaped tomb, and the tomb mouth was dark, exuding an ancient and sacred aura. "Haven't stepped in yet." Then I heard a voice coming from inside. "I've been waiting for you for a long time, come in." A black question mark appeared in Su Chonga's mind. "What's the situation?" He walked in with suspicion. Entering it, I saw an old man wearing a crane-red robe and a gold silk fish patterned python belt sitting on a taisher chair, waiting for him with a smile. He had a childlike appearance and an extraordinary temperament, but he faintly exuded an extremely dangerous aura. "Congratulations on passing the test of the old man." The old man clapped his hands, let out a crackling applause, and laughed while clapping. "I can see that you are very strong, stronger than everyone. It is clear that you only have the cultivation of the King Sealing Realm, but you can kill the ruins, kill the 10,000 Devils Cave, and finally arrive here. Not bad, really good." Su Chonga didn't understand, but he also expected a rough idea. Could it be that he fell into a serial meter? "What do you mean?" he asked. "It's not interesting." The old man picked up a cup of tea, took a slow sip, and said with a smile, "I am the head of the Zhao family." "What? Head of the Zhao family?" Su Chonga's eyes froze and said, "You are a witness?" "Good." The head of the Zhao family put down the water cup and said calmly, "The Venerable has not actually revived. The reason is that he has been looking for a suitable body. The previous Venerable has limited talent, but he has only reached the step of quasi-saint. If you borrow the corpse with your physical body to return the soul, this life will definitely be able to go further." Su Chonga's eyes were cold. If the expectation is correct, the Venerable in the mouth of the head of the Zhao family should refer to the great Luo heavenly demon, right? In this way, the Zhao family and a Luo Tianma turned out to be a gang? So all this is actually a trap? To screen out the right flesh? And at this time, the aura on the head of the Zhao family suddenly changed, becoming cold and piercing like ice. Click, there was a bone-crisp sound in his body, and the flesh and blood on his body disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye, revealing his true face and transforming into a skeleton. It turns out that the Zhao family has long been enchanted. Coming under the order of the head of the Zhao family, dozens of silver-armored guards appeared, each with a skeleton under the armor, surrounded by the terrifying Sendai realm cultivation, and the dazzling demon power swept thousands of miles and soared into the sky. Su Xianyue's pupils froze. It turned out to be the Sendai realm. Those in the 10,000 Devils Cave are not at all a level. Don't hurt this son's life, just suppress it. The head of the Zhao family took the tea, drank it unhurriedly, and lightly ordered, "If you destroy the flesh, your holiness will be unhappy." Whoosh! The silver-armored guards answered, and in an instant, the golden light in their hands shone, and one by one the Tao weapons shone with brilliant light, and they were thrown out. The Taoist instrument is like a tide, like a golden glow spilling in the sky. Ingluo, copper bell, guding, fish intestine, golden bell. There were many types, dazzling, and went towards Suchanga to suppress. Gongzi, be careful. Seeing that the heavenly Tao weapon was smashing like a tide, Su Lianyua's pupil stepped forward with a sword, and immediately struck, slashing out with a sword. And me. Xiaoyu Chongguan was furious, and the aura belonging to the ancient ferocious beast suddenly burst out in full force. Bang! Bang bang! The sound of violent blows continued endlessly and deafeningly. Under the joint efforts of the two women, before the heavenly Tao weapon arrived in front of Suchanga, it had already exploded one after another with criticism and exploded into powder. Many silver-armored guards were startled, but quickly turned their minds, and a sword weapon with a sharp handle appeared in their hands, exuding the vicissitudes and ancient aura, and came towards Suchanga. The head of the Zhao family drank tea lightly on the side, and his eyes became more and more hot. The stronger the people around Suchanga, the more it means that he is peerless Tianjiao, which is exactly what he wants. Of course, as long as the scene doesn't get out of hand. Find death. Suchanga slashed out, and the powerful knife intent burst out instantly. Boom! The air burst out, and an extremely domineering knife intent swept out, like a terrifying wave, mighty in all directions. In an instant, the head of the Zhao family only felt the hurricane roaring around him, and the powerful knife intent layer after layer, heavy and heavy, rolling by, like a roaring and rushing wave, wave after wave, wave after wave. Momentum like a wave, murderous boiling. Click! This knife slashed straight at a silver-armored guard, like chopping melons and cutting vegetables, instantly splitting him in half from head to toe, plopping to the ground to death. What? The head of the Zhao family slapped his seat in shock and stood up. The next moment, something unbelievable appeared for him, only to see Su Changa facing the dozens of silver-armored guards, even if the gap was as huge as Sendai. Instead of retreating, he stepped forward step by step. His steps were steady, his moves were solid, and he was as powerful as a god of war, slashing out one after another. Boom! Click! Boom! One after another, the sword light smashed the long sky. The momentum was heavy, slashing on the gold and silver guards. The sturdy silver armor was like a fragile paper shell, and it slammed and exploded with a single face. And sparks splashed everywhere. Plop! Another silver-armored guard was cut open and fell to the ground. Then, but in an instant, the remaining silver-armored guards were killed without even walking over around on Suchanga. It is better to say that it is a killing, a slaughter, a one-sided massacre. The green dragon moon knife does not need to worry about its own realm, even if there is no cultivator. With this sword, he can kill the immortal king strongly. Not to mention these Sendai in front of you. The face of the head of the Zhao family suddenly became gloomy as water. The scene, out of control. Originally, he thought that with so many Sendai realms present, even if he couldn't cure this sun, he could rely on Tao weapons to suppress it, but who knew that this sun was so strong? The sword was domineering, and he was extremely powerful. His eyes burned and said, "Very good, it seems that the old man is going to personally make a move." With a bang, a terrifying aura rushed out of his body, rushed out of the tomb in an instant, and swept through the heavenly dome. Purple Mansion Realm. At the same time, a Fong Tian painting halberd appeared in his hand, and with a wave of it, the tip of the halberd burst out with endless edges, like electric light, penetrating the space, and stabbing towards Suchanga. Bang! Between the electric flint, this halberd stabbed fiercely on Suchanga's body. Only listening to the sonorous sound, sparks burst out, and Fong Tian's halberd was broken in two, exploding into fragments in the sky. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2aa54z8b. You. What kind of flesh are you? The head of the Zhao family was shocked and felt a deep shock. He was very aware of the power of his blow. The power was exhausted, and the fatal blow was blow, but he did not expect that even the other party's skin was not pierced. Suchanga never talked nonsense, and cut out at him with a knife. Boom! With a slash, the endless physical divine treasures in his body were opened. And a powerful momentum swept out, and a huge force of 2 billion caddies swung the moon knife and slashed out. Click! A crisp sound of bones breaking sounded, and this knife slashed straight at the head of the Zhao family, instantly unloading his entire shoulder, and the broken bones mixed with bone stubble splashed around. If it weren't for his lack of flesh, he would already be bleeding all over the ground at this time. The head of the Zhao family wailed in pain, and immediately turned around, and a Fong Tian painting halberd appeared again on his remaining arm. And the swinging wind hunted and stabbed towards Suchanga's face. He believes that even if the other party is physically strong, there are always weaknesses, and the face gate is where the door of life is, and there should be no strong body hardness there. It's just that before he stabbed out this halberd, he suddenly noticed a sharp pain in his spine, and hurriedly turned his head to look, only to see that the two women were lurking behind their backs at some point, and the two sharp long swords glowed with cold light, clicking, piercing his vertebrae. Ah! The head of the Zhao family screamed hysterically. His skeleton body can't last long. This is a magic skill from the great Luo heavenly demon, which can transform the flesh into a skeleton, as long as it is not fatally injured. It almost has endless life. Yuan, immortal, and immortal. If the body is severely damaged, the light is seriously injured, and the worst is due to excessive blood loss and death. But without a physical body, none of this ceases to exist. But now, his vertebrae were pierced, a wisp of black blood splashed out, the flesh and blood on his body suddenly returned, and in an instant it turned into flesh and blood, and the two swords were directly inserted into his body. And the severe pain made him vomit blood, and his face changed again and again. Dare to calculate the sun, die. Shaolier was furious, and the hands holding the hilt of the sword violently forced, and the sharp blade pushed fiercely towards his body. Suddenly, the dragon grappling sword penetrated the head of the Zhao family. And the tip of the sword pierced out of his chest, stained with wisps of red blood, dripping towards the ground. Poof! Poof! The head of the Zhao family frantically vomited blood. His face was as white as paper. Under the siege of these three people, he felt that the situation was completely out of control. Maybe he would die here today. Nope. If it goes on like this, the plan will fail, and it seems that you can only do it without stopping. A red light flashed in the corner of his eyes, revealing a crazy color, and he smashed a black thing in his hand, and roared up to the sky, "Your lord, I am willing to sacrifice my flesh to you and pray for your coming. I will sacrifice my flesh to come." Boom! The dragon tomb exploded, a strong sense of oppression like a dark cloud overpowering. Above the sky dome, lightning and thunder, the day was shrouded. In a dark magic fog, the terrible coercion gradually increased, the clouds trembled, the void trembled, the suffocating sense of oppression progressed. Layer by layer, within a radius of thousands of miles, flowers and trees withered in an instant. The mountains are emerald, all are decaying. Birds, and beasts became bones in an instant, their flesh was destroyed. And there were no bones. Immediately after, an extremely terrifying phantom of a strong man appeared in the void. His figure was huge, the skeleton crown on his head was sprinkled with a bead curtain, like an imperial crown, his fingertips gently tapped the skeleton. Thrown under him, like a blood-devouring demon king floating in the world, he will be born today, coercing 9 heavens and 10 earths. This figure erupted with ferocious momentum, but its eyes were closed, as if it had not yet recovered. Your lord, I would like to sacrifice my flesh and pray. The head of the Zhao family was hoarse, his mind moved, and he instantly completed the sacrifice ceremony. Flesh. The terrifying figure's eyes slowly opened, as if the characters in the painting were alive, and at this moment the quasi-saint was revived, like a majestic demon god awakening. The endless breath of mixed elements is about to overturn the sky. The breath of mixed elements is pervasive. A pair of footsteps trampled on the clouds, and the figure condensed from the void, and suddenly opened his eyes. In an instant, the terrifying killing intent was like an eternal battle. Countless people in heaven and earth saw at this moment a mighty figure seemed to come from eternal immortality, stepping on billions of voids, slowly emerging. P.S. Thank you for the love letter sent yesterday, Zian, who loves to eat cold. Phoenix Tail. Neho Bridge Bookworm Milk Tea sent out. Boom. An extremely terrifying strong man opened his eyes, and in an instant, the heavenly dome seemed to collapse, unable to withstand these pupils. Just a wisp of breath overflowed in the body made the firmament tremble, filled with monstrous ferocity and cruelty. Just a sweep of the eyes caused billions of living beings to be destroyed. The earth was dripping with blood, and the blood merged into rivers and seas. I have slept for 1,000,000 years, and today resuscitated. Boom. Countless people in heaven and earth brushed and fell, the flesh dried up and decayed, everything was silent, there was no fluctuation of any living beings. In an instant, within a radius of hundreds of millions of miles, looking at the vast heaven and earth were transformed into a dark forbidden area. The demon flame was boiling, rising up into the sky, covering the sky, like the purgatory Black Sea, pulling people into the endless azure hell. The body of the head of the Zhao family also dried up in an instant, and his flesh and blood decayed, becoming a handful of dry bones. It turned out to be him. Su Lianyue looked at the void, her pupils shrank, revealing a touch of caution. Who is he? Su Chong's pupils also shrank, and his breathing couldn't help but accelerate. That figure was too terrifying, just a wisp of breath overflowed, and everything around it turned into dead silence in an instant, reduced to a forbidden area. Is this a quasi-saint with 1 foot in the holy realm? Blackwing Devil. Su Lianyue took a deep breath and said cautiously, he is not the great Luo heavenly demon, he is the Blackwing great demon. In the primeval era, there was a Blackwing demon between heaven and earth. A pair of wings soaring for hundreds of millions of miles, covering the sky. Terrifying, cultivating for millions of years, and finally entering the ranks of quasi-saints, but did not set foot on the real saint on the day when the life Yuan was exhausted, unwilling to die here, slashed himself, sealed the origin, so as to avoid several calamities and reckonings. Su Chong's eyes gradually became solemn. On the side, Xiaoyu looked up at the sky, and his body trembled slightly. Under the pressure of quasi-saint power. That coercion, like a glorious heavenly power, fell, sweeping all things in. The world. Are you saying that we were deceived, and he impersonated De Luo heavenly demon? Su Chang'e spoke. Exactly. Su Xianyue nodded. Don't wait for anyone else to speak. Boom. The Blackwing Great Demon struck. A pair of big hands came like an umbrella, across the sky, towards the ground. Before it was pressed down, the space could not withstand this oppression. Twisted and exploded, emitting ear-shattering sonic booms, releasing quasi holy laws, forming a dazzling oppression, like a thing in the palm of the hand, and like a heaven and earth in the palm. The world is just a stone's throw away. No one can remain calm under this palm. Ugh. Su Lianyue waved her arm, and a sword smashed the space, but when it hit the big hand, it only stopped him for a second, and the big hand quickly recovered. And pressed straight forward. Inch by inch. It's like darkness in an inch of radiation. The sky dome is turning black inch by inch. It's like night is coming. The terrifying oppression instantly focused on the top of the three people's heads, gently pressed downward. The terrifying shock wave suddenly erupted. And in an instant, the entire Nalong tomb could not withstand it, and the ground exploded and collapsed downward, forming an abyss. Master, this demon head is not easy to deal with, the divine soul and body are quasi-saints, it is a little uncomfortable. The moment the big hand fell, Xiaoyu led the two out of the danger area, and stood on a mountaintop panting. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2aa54z8b. Su Chang'e took a slight breath of cool air, looking at the Nalong tomb that was photographed into an abyss, his eyes solemn. Or is it the first time I have encountered a quasi-saint? Is this the strength of the saint level? Even a quasi-saint who stepped into the holy realm with 1 foot almost collapsed the sky under one blow, so terrifying. The flesh of the three of you is good, I accept it. The Blackwing demon spread his arms, and a pair of big black wings suddenly appeared behind him, almost like measuring heaven and earth, and his figure moved, jumping out of the skeleton throne. Phew! Moment. It crossed 1,000,000 miles, and came to Su Chang'e in an instant. The little phagocytosis contracted sharply in an instant. This speed. Gongzi, danger. Get out of the way. Boom. Su Lianyue's body suddenly burst out of a brilliant aura, the power of the soul was blooming, and her body turned into a brilliant starry light. Her eyes were like golden sun, and the runes around her body flashed, surrounding the surroundings. Little sister eater, take Gongzi away, I burn my soul. She cried out, tears welling up in her eyes. This close distance to the face, if it is a quarter of an hour later, all three of them will be buried here. No need. Su Chang'e slapped a palm on her back and said, I have a huge amount of spiritual energy transmitted to you. This huge amount of spiritual energy should be enough for you to temporarily restore your saint cultivation. Buzz. A stream of pure to the extreme, vast to the extreme, majestic to the extreme. Aura gushed and flowed, rushing endlessly, and quickly entered her body. Duh. Su Lianyue's spine stood up sharply, the breath on her body climbed step by step, and the whole person was like a great sun, her breath soared, and her momentum was like a rainbow. Boom. Just between the breaths, her cultivation rose layer by layer, and in an instant she stepped over the Sendai, stepped through the purple mansion, walked through Hinayana, and crossed the ascension life and death tribulation. instantly transformed into a saint, and stepped into the Mahayana realm. Mahayana realm, quasi-saint, saint, saint-king, great sage, quasi-emperor. Great emperor, reincarnation, supreme. Boom. Boom. The saint coerced, swept all things in heaven and earth, and swept through the 6 and 8 wastes. At this moment, Su Lianyue returned to the holy realm. Her vertebrae rose tall, like a keel, her black hair turned blonde, like gold. Poured, flying in the wind, and her eyes were as deep as the starry sky, shining with brilliant starlight. Huh? The black-winged demon suddenly felt the soaring breath in front of him, and this breath seemed to be somewhat familiar in his memory, and before he could come back to his senses, he saw the woman slowly open a pair of eyes. This eye was so brilliant, so gorgeous, like a sleeping candle dragon revived, and suddenly like a sleeping dragon awakening. In an instant, the profound and extreme mixed element aura swept across the vast universe. Endless rhymes, rules, and order are surrendered like ants, making circular movements around her body. And behind that, a golden light will gradually condensed, sacred, and inviolable. A glance of light swept over the black-winged great demon, and suddenly swept through the eternal world, staring at him indifferently and mercilessly. When this light swept over the black-winged great demon, he suddenly shivered fiercely, and his heart trembled twice. What is that? Quasi-saint? No. No. I can't feel the breath anymore. But seeing that golden light taking turns, the rhyme of the Tao is gorgeous. The rules of heaven and earth are engulfed, and the order is brilliant. He suddenly understands that he has provoked a ruthless stubble that must not be provoked. The next moment, a light swept over. The world in front of him was ever-changing, like the vicissitudes of the sea evolving mulberry fields, causing the years to change. That light directly replaced the black-winged demon into the primeval period. Hundreds of millions of years ago. Taiku reckless. There are sword immortals who have crossed the road of life and death in Huangquan, immortal kings who have ascended to usher in the ninefold life and death calamity, quasi-saints who have entered the Mahayana realm, and peerless powerhouses who have crossed quasi-saints to ascend to true saints. Suddenly, the earth began to crack, and the sky dome was dark and red. The dome of heaven is burning. The earth is bleeding. The red underground magma spewed out, turning into a raging river, and the heavenly dome poured endless blood rain, falling on the ground and corroding the earth. The sky and the earth are dark, the wind is howling, the entire firmament is lightning and thundering, and one after another dazzling thunder streaks across the sky, interpreting the way of destruction. The scene of the whole world is collapsing and destroying. The calamity comes. A great reckoning quickly comes. There are evil gods against the sky who have crossed over, retrograde immortals. There are immortal kings howling hysterically, unwilling to destroy because of the reckoning, and there is also the Lord of the Forbidden Area, who cuts himself off and seals the origin for self-preservation. The whole world was in chaos in an instant, strife and war, forming the ancient battlefield. Buzz. Abrupt. The heavenly dome opened and closed a portal, and a figure appeared. She was dressed in golden armor, her eyes were as bright as the golden sun, her blonde hair fluttered in the wind, surrounded by runes, and the endless Tao rhyme was like a chain of avenues. She fell from the sky, fluttering on this primeval battlefield, under the reflection of the crimson sky dome. Like a god descended, a golden divine sword appeared in his hand, with infinite patterns encircling thousands of rules and orders, such as the holy envoy who executed the liquidation, and began the liquidation at this moment. Far away, the black-winged demon saw this figure. It was a woman. Graceful, wearing fairy clothes, walking step by step, walking to the evil god. Who was retrograde and cutting immortals, a sword cut out, poof, blood stained the sky. The black-winged demon hissed fiercely, and his heart jumped out of his throat and his body for a moment, as if he was watching a fierce beast to slaughter. Ugh! Another sword. Immortals kneel. And that immortal king-level powerhouse, like a mouse seeing a cat, quickly fled, but still could not resist the sword that came horizontally. Click. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2aa54z8b. The immortal king's waist broke and turned into two halves. But in the blink of an eye, one after another corpses were placed in front of the eyes of the black-winged great devil, and that sword was as piercing as ice and snow, splitting the anti-heaven evil god, slashing the immortal king, penetrating the lord of the forbidden area, slaughtering the quasi-saint, and countless Mahayana-level powerhouses were slaughtered. Indiscriminate slaughter. Heaven and earth, calamity, liquidation. It was a catastrophe. Also a war. It's just a piece of information. The pupils of the black-winged great demon were almost solidified, looking at the corpses from afar, and as far as the eye could see, there were countless corpses lying across the vast and boundless land, even if it was a corpse millions of miles away, separated by a long distance. The breath on his body made him truly feel the oppression of the holy realm. Those corpses. A tool. Without exception, they are holy realms. Even the breath that spills after death. It all made him, a quasi-saint, tremble, his heart beat faster, like walking on thin ice, and his brain case was almost exploded, almost trembling like horror. Ugh! Another sword. It drove the heart of the black-winged devil, making him tremble madly, and when he looked up, he saw the head of a true saint flying up, in front of the woman. The holy blood stained the sky red, the saint fell, the heaven and earth cried, and the blood rained. There were also other saints who begged bitterly under the figure, wanting to save their lives, but what they ushered in was still the extinction of a sword. In the blink of an eye, the skulls of the saints were scattered in the blood. See Corpse Mountain, cast into white bones. This era is finally over, and the next era is coming. And those who practice liquidation. It was the woman with the sword. Suddenly, the black-winged great demon's pupils shrank dramatically, looking at the woman holding the sword, and finally saw her face clearly. That was Su Xianyue. Her spine was tall, the whole person was like a keel. Propped up, walking towards him step by step, it was clear that there were hundreds of millions of miles away, but her steps suddenly shrunk into inches. The end of the world, step by step, walked in front of the black-winged devil. Her eyes gradually became cold, her clothes gradually became gorgeous, and bloody. Her appearance also began to transform, becoming bloody and indifferent, and the breath on her body began to climb step by step, as if returning to the peak. Step by step. It's like crossing the primeval world. Crossing the great reckoning of the world. Come to him. In an instant, the aura of a true saint swept across hundreds of millions of heavens. One by one, the large worlds exploded under the coercion of the saints, and countless small and medium-sized worlds turned into ruins under the aftermath. This is liquidation. No one can escape. You. It's you. It turned out to be you. The black-winged great devil's pupils dilated, and he lost his voice in shock. Fish who slipped through the net, I didn't expect to see you here. Suddenly, Su Lianyue spoke. At the beginning, she opened the calamity, and the massacre was also created, opening a new chapter of the era. But there are also fish that have slipped through the net and escaped under their noses. Now, unexpectedly, it ran into it again. "How are you? How are you? It's been so long, how do you?" One after another memories swept through the mind of the black-winged great demon, and his heart trembled, wanting to break free, but he couldn't break free from this heaven and earth no matter what. This primeval battlefield. Quasi-saint bones are everywhere, and the blood of that true saint is even more full of rivers and mountains, and his skeleton throne is not even as good as ants here, and the crown is even more funny. He couldn't get out. Can't break free. Blackwing great devil, after the primeval eradication, the ancient antiquity, the middle antiquity, the near ancient, and the four calamities without falling, a good record, but today. Su Lianhua looked at him coldly, her gaze was like a torch, as if she wanted to pierce him. Click. The black-winged great demon beast twisted its neck and let out a sneer. "Do you think I have no whole cards? I have survived so many great purges, and my achievements are brilliant, and now is not the day of calamity, I have my own chance of victory." Boom. He shot on the spot. Thunder tomahawk. A battle axe appeared in the hand, an axe split the sky, making the bloody aura of the ancient battlefield more intense. This axe even those immortal kings joined forces before their death. This is a blow of the black-winged great devil, the terrifying momentum only spewed out and almost beheaded their corpses. Ignorance. A moment of pity flashed in Su Lianhua's eyes. She had forgotten how many immortal kings she had killed, how many saints she had slaughtered, which calamity was not the countless souls under the sword, which great reckoning was not slaughtering and extinction, and even the saints were all killed. As for this split axe, like a grasshopper shaking a tree, it is beyond its strength. Her eyes swept away. Buzz. This light of light swept through the ages, from the primeval era to the present, carrying the light of judgment and destruction, and the law of endless saints swept out. Oh! The axe light exploded directly, shattered in a spark, and exploded with a bang, as beautiful as fireworks. Look again at the tomahawk. A glimpse of light. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2aa54z8b. Oh! Explode directly. Even the palm of the black-winged demon exploded, flesh and blood flew everywhere, and blood splattered everywhere. I fought with you, opinion paper. The face of the black-winged great demon changed, and the quasi-saint cultivator burst out in full force, shouted loudly, and burned the essence. Blood to sacrifice a piece of magic paper. Quasi-holy law paper. It contains infinite saint power. Once sacrificed, heaven and earth will fall, and all disasters will not recover. An instant. The red magic paper came out of its hands and hung in the void, and the terrifying power contained in it gushed out in an instant, like a volcanic eruption. Hot magma erupted from the inside of the paper, rising hundreds of millions of feet in the face of the storm, and the terrifying destruction chi machine erupted in an instant, landing on the ancient battlefield, intertwined into a devastating sea of fire, sweeping everything and drowning everything. The dim crimson sky dome suddenly turned crimson. The sea of billowing fire burned the sky like an overwhelming net, falling from the sky, corroding a large area of the sky along the way, like hot iron. Juice poured on a mirror, making a terrifying corrosion sound, covering the ground. Such a sea of fire will cause endless lives to be destroyed. Paper? Very good. Then let you see what is the real magic paper. Su Lianyue stretched out a hand, and a Dao-seeking jade appeared in her palm. And in an instant, the rich Dao rhyme was like a shooting star, dazzling like a god. Click. Seeking Dao jade cracked. The heart that pulled the black-winged great demon trembled twice. A page of golden magic paper flew out from inside the Dao jade, 3 inches. Of yellow paper, containing countless rules and orders, the front side was engraved with heaven, the back was engraved with qi, the law was heaven and earth, and the wind and thunder rhyme. Buzz. The magic paper buzzed, intertwined into a piece of Dao rule order light. Brilliant as fireworks, like a pure land outside the domain. Each light contains countless law order, 3 inches of yellow paper, can behead saints. When the magic paper hit the sea of fire in the sky, time and space suddenly deviated, the long river of time and space flowed backwards, emitting a rumbling sound of flowing water, and the sound of the sea of fire clattered into nothingness, and even the magic paper was all reduced to nothingness. Is this a true saint? The face of the black-winged great demon changed wildly, and his heart completely popped out of his throat, and he couldn't even lift his head under the coercion of the true saint. And he could see clearly what was written on the golden paper. Oh my God! Heaven forbid! P.S. Thank you for the inspiration capsules sent by the 2 yesterday, Yun Fei. Who loves to eat early morning stomach soup? What local police do Fushi enemies meet? Click. The magic paper fell, and when it touched the black-winged great devil, his face changed drastically. He was shocked. The heavens and the earth were destroyed. The heavens and the earth were destroyed, and the Saint Law paper was destroyed by the heavens and the earth. Oh! Moment. His wings were cut off abruptly, blood flowed everywhere, and an extremely pungent smell of blood filled the air, and the naked eye saw that there was nothing in space, like nothingness, but a piercing sonic boom accompanied by terrifying fluctuations slashed, and there seemed to be an invisible blade in the air, coming from the primeval era through time and space, to behead him. Ugh! His pupils contracted violently, his face was pale, his body was trembling faster than anyone else's, and he begged for mercy. Spare your life, spare your life, I was wrong, I shouldn't. Oh! His arms were cut off, blood splattered, and the river flowed against the river. Hoping for mercy, the black-winged great devil's pupils suddenly released a fierce madness, and howled hysterically, I don't understand, you are a saint. You are the first person in heaven and earth to open the calamity, why? Protect that kid. Who the hell is that kid you? Click. His legs were cut off, and the broken bones burst into fireworks of blood, splashing into the distance. The severe pain made the black-winged great demon look up at the sky, emitting a low roar, followed by the power of the magic paper bursting out more and more. Far away from billions of time and space, there seemed to be billions of invisible great swords in the air, firmly locking him, cutting down one after another, and slashing on the black-winged great devil one after another. Oh! Moment. Blood gushes. His wrists, his arms, his shoulders, half of his body, were cut off one after another, like a corpse burst open, like a whale falling, under such an indiscriminate attack. The black-winged demon went crazy, and finally realized that he had no possibility of survival under the hands of the saint. The fierce figure moved, roared, dragged the remnants towards the battlefield and fled. This primeval battlefield, vast and boundless, I don't know how many billions of miles, is the battlefield of the Kanglan realm in the primeval era. That day, under the dim red sky dome, a killing coming, how much power was liquidated, rolling the east of the Yangtze River, the waves washed away the heroes, opened the ancient era, and allowed it to enter the historical stage. Now, the winds of change. The sun and the moon change. With a glance of light, the sage substituted the black-winged great demon into this heaven and earth. Almost instantly, as if it was a breath, and it seemed to be a blink of an eye, the black-winged great demon fled hundreds of millions of miles away and disappeared at the end of the horizon. Su Xinyue's eyes were indifferent, and she looked at his figure like that. And a trace of pity for the ants flashed in her eyes. It wasn't until the black-winged great demon disappeared at the end of the horizon that she snorted coldly, and the Excalibur in her hand burst out with immeasurable divine light, looking at the horizon, and a sword cut out. Boom! Boom! This sword, just like the heavenly river rewinding, since the time of its appearance. There are visions of heaven and earth born, thousands of rays of light, billions of rays of color, endless earth, water, wind and fire gushing. A sword cut open the heaven and earth, penetrated the sun and the moon, directly tore the battlefield, turning into an abyss of billions of zhang. The firmament is collapsing inch by inch. What the? The black-winged great demon fled madly, but he also sensed the terrifying sword light behind him, and even if he didn't have to look back, he could really feel the fierce sword intent that was rapidly striking behind him. That sword intent was like a horizontal thunder between heaven and earth, and where it passed, billions of expanses exploded, as if opening up chaos, and a terrifying murderous opportunity swept through the sky. Tear up. This sword tore through the battlefield, spanning hundreds of millions of miles, tearing the heavenly dome, and even tearing the body of the endless saint, and came to the face of the black-winged great demon in a distant time and space, mercilessly chopping down. Row. Spare your life. The black-winged big demon's eyelids jumped violently, trembling all over, and only had time to let out a scream, and in a clicking, bone-shattering sound, he was cut in half by a blow of his head and feet, and even his divine soul was wiped out alive. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2AA54Z8b. At the moment of the demise of the divine soul, Su Lianyue's figure moved, her blonde hair flew, and she instantly stepped over hundreds of millions of miles. And her fingertips lightly touched on the head of the black-winged big devil. Buzz. A memory is retrieved. It turned out that he really pretended to be the great Luo heavenly demon, and even the head of the Zhao family was deceived, did not know his true identity, and stupidly looked for his body, but he did not know that he was just a pawn. Until he died. And the black-winged great devil, who wanted to screen out the strongest body of this era, did not expect to meet the true saint, causing the boat to capsize in the gutter. At the same time, he also read where Chu Shui was detained. Boom. The sky was raining bloody again. The saint fell, the heaven and the earth roared, the heavens rained blood, and even the quasi-saint who stepped into the holy realm with 1 foot was among the holy realms. Outside, Su Chang'e and Xiaoyu looked at Su Lianyue in front of them, and saw that she was motionless, her blonde hair flowed like real gold, and her hair was flying, like a heavenly god standing in heaven and earth. On the opposite side of her, the black-winged big devil's body exploded inch by inch, first wings, then body, flesh, until the body was cut in two, broken from the middle, and then exploded, blood splashed everywhere. Suddenly, Su Lianyue's eyes opened. The blonde hair instantly returned to the black hair, his eyes gradually recovered, and Xiu Wei also returned to the Dao Palace in an instant. Gongzi, this massive amount of spiritual energy, did offer me back to the saint, but it could only last for half a quarter of an hour. The Black Wing Great Demon had been killed by me, and Chu Shui was imprisoned in another cave nearby. Su Chang'e recalled the arrogance of the black-winged great demon Feng Kai and asked, Lianer, how did you kill him? In the primeval era, as the holy envoy of the heavenly Tao, I opened the first calamity when I slaughtered endless power, so that the era smoothly crossed into the ancient world, but there were also endless powers that slipped away. And the Blackwing Great Demon was one of them. And in the later ancient era, I was also the Terminator, but in the Middle Ages, near antiquity, and the two tribulations, there were other people who played such a role, and every two tribulations, Heavenly Tao would randomly select a person as the holy envoy who opened the tribulation. Speaking of this, Su Xianyue suddenly remembered something again, and said, in the next era transition, I don't know who will be chosen by the heavenly Tao, but don't worry, we have an immortal Tao body. So it is. Su Chang'e understood. It turned out that the chance of Sikong Tu that day was so terrifying, no wonder the Dark Soul Emperor could not pry, even if it was related to his lack of spiritual power and cultivation, but Lianer was the era Terminator designated by the heavenly Tao. If it came to the tournament, Mercier made a move. Who dared to call it invincible? Which one dared to speak undefeated? Xiaoyu said, Master, Sister Mercy, hurry up and save Sister Chu Shui. Everyone snapped back to their senses and immediately began to search. Soon, a cave was discovered nearby. Enter the cave. Eerily humid and cold air. On an ice bed, there was a woman. She was pale, short of breath, and in a coma. It was Chu Shui. The black-winged great demon didn't hurt her, but just used a small means to make her faint, and she could wake up with a little spiritual power. Su Xianyue glanced at it and said, Xiaoyu, help me record it. Su Chang'e put on a white mask, and then took out a photo stone and handed it to Xiaoyu. It was naturally impossible for him to lead Chu Shui to receive the sect reward, and he only needed to take out the video at that time. The small phagocytosis began to record. Su Chang'e took out a pill from his arms, broke Chu Shui's mouth, and fed it. At the entrance of the elixir, Chu Shui's body suddenly emitted a pulse brushing sound, and his complexion turned slightly red, and he was recovering rapidly. It wasn't long before her wrist moved, as if to wake up. This process is accurately documented by the Shadow Stone. Just after doing this, Su Chang'e's eyes suddenly froze, and his divine sense sensed that the breath of the beautiful master was rapidly approaching. Not only that, but the breath of the 9 Peaks Peak Lord of the sect and the 3 million Tianjiao also came horizontally, like a majestic heavenly soldier, covering the sky. The breath is rolling and approaching rapidly. Let's go. Su Chang'e raised his foot and led the person to leave. As soon as they left, the people of the Tai Xian Dao sect who were black pressed in the void arrived. Everyone looked down at everything that had turned into a dry earth for hundreds of millions of miles below, without even a trace of life. Fluctuations, and the scene of escaping from a purgatory forbidden area was silent for a long time. It's also shocking. The scene below, like an ancient mighty being born in the sky, has refined all the living beings in a radius of hundreds of millions of miles, whether it is birds and beasts, or mountains and rivers, all of them are deprived of their vitality. Hey, are we one step late? There's already been a shocking battle here. This is also too strong. How can someone fight with such an ancient power? The 30,000 disciples looked at this scene, stunned, shocked, and looked down. in disbelief. And the 9 Peaks Peak Lords were also shocked and incomplete, and they almost couldn't suppress the cultivation of the riot in their bodies. Look, there is a corpse of Demon Xiao. The Qingyun Peak Lord suddenly discovered something and looked down at the ground. There was the tomb of Naren, which had exploded at this moment, and there were shattered corpses everywhere, as well as silver armor that had been cut apart by knives, and a horrific skeleton with a skeleton on it. Du Sihai suddenly raised his eyebrows and exclaimed, "The pattern on that armor seems to be the family pattern of the Zhao family." Immediately after, he noticed the clue. Almost all of the shattered corpse armor below have such family tattoos. In other words, these people belong to the Zhao family. It's the Zhao family. This seems to be all the Zhao family's scheme. The ice concubine's divine sense swept away, and she immediately sensed the breath of the head of the Zhao family, but this breath was very weak, and only bones were left in the dead path. She fell to the ground and quickly found the pile of dry bones. This is sacrifice. Bingyu glanced at it, suddenly understood, and said, "Maybe the Deluo heavenly demon has not revived, everything is the conspiracy of the head of the Zhao family." He vainly tried to find a qualified body to sacrifice to the Deluo heavenly demon, but he did not expect that an extremely strong disciple from our sect swept their entire family. He was cornered. He sacrificed the Deluo heavenly demon himself, and then the Deluo heavenly demon was resurrected, but he was still killed by that disciple. When the ins and outs of the matter came out of Bingyu's mouth, the 9 Peaks Peak Lord suddenly gasped, and they all couldn't sit still. "Shu! This? How is this possible? Shu! How is this possible, that there are disciples among us who can defeat the great Luo heavenly demon alone? My God, this son is really strong, even if thousands of inner disciples are dispatched, they don't dare to take him down." Not only the 9 Peak Masters present thought like this, but the 30,000 disciples were stunned, their faces were stunned, and they felt that their hands and lips were trembling. Is this the gap? The 30,000 disciples were all staring at the vast mountain of hundreds of millions of miles of blood sea corpses, almost this vast and boundless heaven and earth turned into a dark forbidden area, such a terrifying demon Tao figure, to put it from the bottom of their hearts, even if they broke out all the whole cards, they were not confident that they could win each other, and even killed the other party with one hand. But what is shocking is that this level of power was actually killed by people of their age. If a peak master killed them, they felt nothing, but being trampled by their peers like this, they felt as if they were standing in 10,000 years of solid ice, and the temperature dropped to the freezing point, which was unbelievable. At the same age, people have killed such a devil. What are they doing? Compared with others, he is simply a waste that eats and waits to die. At this moment, the heart of the 30,000 Tianjiao Dao trembled, as if he heard the sound of his own heartbreak, and he had a feeling of being hit. Hey, I remember that the great Luo heavenly demon is not so strong, he is just a demon head of the Hinayana realm. How come at this time of recovery, he actually refined hundreds of millions of miles of living beings? Du Sihai suddenly sensed something. As soon as these words came out, everyone present also noticed it, and the divine sense swept away and did not find any Deluo heavenly demon's aura on the scene. Some were just broken walls. Could it be some other devil? A disciple thought like this, his divine sense swept away, and he suddenly observed something. Shu! No! It's not the great Luo heavenly demon, it's the black-winged devil! He exclaimed, his face changed on the spot, and he looked at a pool of black Blood below, every drop, contained a terrifying quasi-saint aura fluctuation. And he could face the terrifying saint oppression from far away. Ugh. Du Sihai waved his big hand to offset this oppression and said, "It." Turned out to be him. The black-winged great demon, the primeval relics, has already entered the holy realm with 1 foot in the primeval period hundreds of millions of years ago, and is an out-and-out ancient powerhouse. Such a person was actually killed by a disciple? Du Sihai's eyes widened and he was dumbfounded. Many other peak lords also froze straight at this time, and their bodies stiffened. The name of the black-winged great demon has been carried through ancient and modern times. Everyone knows it, no one knows it. That is the ancient power that has survived the 4 great reckonings, and was actually killed by the disciples of later generations? Is it so terrifying? Shoo! 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 30,000 Tianjiao violently heard a whole row of neat gasping sounds. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2aa54z8b. As if I was shocked by something shocking to the world, I was greatly shocked. And shocked, my whole body was trembling, my heart was unstable, my breath was turbulent, my face was full of shock, and my brain was shocked. If the blow they received just now was great, then the blow they received now almost made them doubt their lives. Their faces were full of disbelief, their faces twitched, their lips trembled, their emotions surged in their hearts. They were terrified, and they couldn't calm down for a long time. God, it turns out that they underestimated just now. This is the real gap between people and themselves. You say, is it the transcendent Tianjiao who opened up 18 cave heavens and trembled 10 Dao sounds to kill this Fong? Du Sihai spoke, his lips trembled a little, with his cultivation, although he could kill the black wing great demon, but this ancient relic that had survived to this day must have a lot of whole cards, the 3 caves of the cunning rabbit. He was not sure if he could really take it. The Lord of the 9 Peaks Peak, except for Yi Qingyao, was a saint. As for Sect Master Lin Invincible, the Saint King. Right now, Du Sihai fell into an endless shock, a Mahayana-level powerhouse like him could not win the Black-Wing Great Demon, but he was taken down by a disciple. In this way, it seems that only that person is left. That's right. Definitely him. This time, those sword immortals have not been born, and those sword gods, swordsmen and red dust swordsmen have not been dispatched. It is definitely him. After all, no one else has this ability. The Qingyun Peak Lord and Bingyu spoke in unison. Sword immortal cultivation is in the Ascension period, and the land sword god, the peerless swordsman, and the red dust swordsman are all in the transformation saint period. After the martial god, the realm is divided. Sendai, Zifu, Hinayana, Ascension, Life and Death Tribulation, Avatar. Mahayana. Many Tianjiao were dumbfounded and said, it's definitely that senior brother. Although they guessed that it was the senior brother, they didn't know who it was, because Du Sihai did not spread the news, which was also the order of Sect Master Lin Invincible. At this time, Du Sihai glanced over, and sure enough, he found that there was no figure in the crowd. Huang Jiulong. Yes. This made him more determined. It must be him. Hu Han suddenly came over and said, Master, you said. That's right, it must be your senior brother Huang. Du Sihai's face full of red light transmitted back. He came here early, launched a decisive battle with the black-winged great demon, and when he finished killing, he left earlier, hiding his merits and fame. Hearing this, Hu Han suddenly had deep admiration in his heart, like a mountain on its back, Jingxing stopped, and his heart couldn't stop being excited, dancing with his hands, and trembling with joy. Master, he should have gone back to receive the reward by now, that's a quasi-saint soldier. Hu Han smiled. At this moment, a figure came from the rear. Du Sihai subconsciously turned his head, and suddenly slapped his thigh, overjoyed. That person was none other than Huang Jiulong. At this moment, Huang Jiulong was sweating tiredly, panting heavily, and only felt that his brain case was deprived of oxygen. He tried his best to finally arrive at this moment. Apprentice, hurry, come quickly. Du Sihai beckoned to him, and his heart was extremely happy. Huang Jiulong huffed and walked over and said, Master, what's wrong? Pretend, really can pretend, you see you're tired, killing the Blackwing demon. Wears you out, right? Go back and rest well, I have a heavy reward. Du Sihai's face was full of red light, and he looked at Huang Jiulong in front of him amiably. Huang Jiulong was still a little confused, and Hu Han suddenly asked in a low voice, Senior Brother Huang, your qualifications are against the sky, a whole 18 cave heavens, and the Daoying 10 trembling, there are so many people. In the audience, only you can kill the Blackwing Great Devil. Although I don't know what means you use, there is no one else but you. Don't admit it. Just tell us, is that person you? Other insiders also looked over with burning eyes. In their eyes when they looked at Huang Jiulong, there was admiration, worship, and deep admiration, just like ordinary people looking at the heavenly gods. Yi Qingyao was also looking at Huang Jiulong, but his eyes were complicated and cautious. In front of everyone's eyes, Huang Jiulong understood something, gritted his teeth and nodded, laughing, not bad, I did it. Boom. There was an uproar in the field. Huang Jiulong hurriedly instructed, don't spread the news, keep a low profile, keep a low profile. I understand, Senior Brother Huang is planning to lie dormant silently, and wait for the tournament to be a blockbuster again, I understand, I understand. Hu Han and many people in the know gave a thumbs up. Although Huang Jiulong was weak-hearted, he could not show it at this time. And nodded quietly. Look, it's Chu Shui. Suddenly, the Peak Lord saw Chu Shui's figure walking out of a cave not far away. Chu Shui was ignorant at this time, and did not know how he was rescued, and in the haze only remembered that there seemed to be a figure in white who fed him a pill. The figure was very familiar, making people feel like a spring breeze. But after waking up, he found that the figure was missing, so he came out to look for it. Ouch, my good apprentice, it's good that you're okay, thanks to your senior Brother Huang, he saved you. Du Sihai fled over, and said with a smile on his face. Senior Brother Huang? Chu Shui glanced at Huang Jiulong, and when he saw that he was wearing not a white robe but a yellow robe, he couldn't help frowning. Not him. Chu Shui immediately blurted out. Huang Jiulong's heart was shocked, and he immediately wanted to speak, but at this time, Du Sihai smiled and said, Apprentice, your senior brother Huang is relatively low-key, you can see who is strange, and you have just been rescued, your brain must be very messy, it is normal if you can't recognize clearly, come, take you home first. P.S. Supreme is the highest realm of this book, the invincible realm. A few hours later, when everyone was still on their way back, Su Chang'e had already taken the lead in returning to the Taishan Dao sect and arrived at the main peak mission hall. All the tasks in the sect are distributed from here, and naturally the rewards are also received here. At this moment, Lin Invincible was also there, and a waiter brought a plate with a star Dao robe on it. This item was the Holy Sun Dao robe, and from the day the original tournament was promulgated, this Dao robe had been made under Lin Invincible's order, and now it had finally been made. After the contest is over and the Holy Sun is elected, this star Dao robe will be distributed. Came to receive the prize? The mission elder raised his head and looked at the white-clothed disciples, who walked in, a little puzzled. The army has not returned yet, why did it come back alone? Lin Invincible's pupils condensed slightly. This disciple seems to have just met. The white-clothed disciple was none other than Suchanga, who was wearing a white mask on his face. Facing the question of the mission elder, he did not took out the photo stone and handed it over. The mission elder glanced at the contents of the lingering stone, and his attitude immediately became gentle. Since you saved Chu Shui, then this holy soldier is naturally yours. As he spoke, he looked at the sect master. This is exactly why Lin Invincible is here. How terrifying the holy soldier is. It is a great killing weapon to suppress the background, and under normal circumstances, it is naturally kept by him. Take off your mask and I'll see. Lin Invincible spoke. He only felt that the figure of this white-clothed disciple seemed very familiar, as if he had just seen it. It is true that there are disciples in the sect who like to wear white clothes, and he does not strictly order that all disciples must wear uniform robes, even if each peak has robes, but there are many disciples who are loose and wear their favorite robes. He wanted to see who had done the job, even if he already had a guess in his mind. But no one can say for sure. Sect Master, at that time, you only said that if you killed the great Luo heavenly demon and rescued Chu Shui, you could reward the extreme Dao saint soldier, and you didn't say that you would take off the mask, and now. Suchanga arched his hand, his expression was neither humble nor arrogant. This is, Lin Invincible was a little dumbfounded, and did not ask any more, but said, in this way, then you tell me, are you the peerless Tianjiao, who trembled with 10 Daoyin? That was the guess in his mind. Since this son is not willing to disclose his identity, it is okay to confirm it a little. Yes. Suchanga nodded crisply. Lin Invincible was overjoyed. Sure enough, it was Huang Jiulong. The heart knot is untied, then it is much easier to talk about next. Okay, this holy soldier is also for you. As for this star Dao robe, it is also very likely to be yours. I hope you can defeat those immortal sword gods, as well as peerless swordsmen, red dust swordsmen, and my closed disciple. While speaking, a divine sword was handed over, made of gilt throughout, shining with endless runes, like a runic sword, brilliant. Just by sweeping away, you can directly feel the terrifying holy realm aura. Sect Master Xia. Suchanga took the rune sword, and his hand was as light as nothing, as if he was holding a strand of hair, and he was also surprised from the bottom of his heart. Is this a holy soldier? It's really different. Lin Invincible said at this time, you are not willing to reveal your identity, and I will not force it, but I must say more, the Holy Sun is the next sect master, and he must usually show his true face. If you really become the Holy Sun, you need to take off the mask. The disciple got it. Suchanga surrendered. Lin Invincible added, at the tournament, in order to prevent others from assuming the position of the Holy Sun, you also need to take off the mask and register your appearance at the beginning of the competition, which you need to know. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2AA54Z8B. Suchanga handed over his hand. Disciples remember. By the way, there is an additional reward here, which is my personal reward. For you. Lin Wuwei took out a pill bottle from his arms and said with an appreciative smile, this item is extremely precious, go back and look at it. Again. Yes, sect master. Su Chang'e took the pill bottle and turned to leave. Back to the cottage. Su Chang'e remembered the star Dao robe just now, and couldn't help but sigh. With emotion, what a Saint Sun Dao robe, really handsome. He didn't look closely just now, but with just a glance, the endless star runes inlaid on the Dao robe had already dazzled him. In a word, wearing your handsomeness will definitely be able to connect 300 levels, and high-speed rail will not be able to catch up. But it will have to wait until after the tournament. Immediately, he withdrew his attention and ran the quenching spirit secret technique. Sweeping at this quasi-saint soldier, ready to remove impurities. At a glance, there are not many impurities, only more than 20. Worthy of being a holy soldier. Su Chang'e's face was full of red light with joy, thinking about it, how could there be so many impurities in this big killing weapon? A little fingertips. Suddenly, the impurities in the holy soldiers were removed one after another. And the fierce light was bright, like the stars twinkling in the night sky. And the dazzling light illuminated the hut in an instant. It was clear that the outside was daytime, but the inside was like being illuminated by a small sun, and it was extremely bright. The reason why he wanted to get this quasi-saint soldier was that he wanted to use it to create a real holy soldier, and then give this item away, which would definitely be able to brush a stronger holy soldier. As for how to create it, this is simple, smelting some rare meteoric iron. Materials for forging holy soldiers. Maybe this quasi-holy soldier will be promoted to a real holy soldier. And the rare materials he had in his hands, they were a piece of eternal real gold and a piece of extraterrestrial meteoric iron. However, only 2 pieces of iron are not enough to be promoted, and some materials are still needed to obtain. After a while, the 9 Peaks Peak Lord who went to the outside world led the disciples back. One after another, this mission was much faster than they thought. They thought it would take a long time, who knew that in the past it was just a soy sauce and came back, thanks to that peerless Tianjiao. Many people thought like this and fled back to their respective peaks, and Yi Qingyao couldn't wait to return to Lihua Peak. Rooftop Peak. After Huang Jiulong came back, he didn't dare to rush to receive the reward. He was impatient in his heart, he watched the holy soldier and did not dare to receive it, and he lost his arms. This mood made his heart drip blood, and he wanted to die. After thinking about it again and again, he struggled psychologically, and in the end, for the sake of safety, he still did not go to receive it. Not long after, Sikong too received the news that the saint soldier had been taken away from the main hall, and he was overjoyed, and the first one ran to Huang Jiulong and congratulations to senior brother Huang for obtaining the extreme saint soldier. Huang Jiulong was so scheming, he immediately understood that the holy soldier had been led away by that true Daoing 10 trembling Tianjiao, and nodded quietly. There is no need to be so excited. After that, he rolled his eyes and said tentatively, how do you know that I received it? Sikong too smiled and said, senior brother Huang, you are really low-key, even your own people have to hide it? You changed into a white robe and wore a mask to take away the holy soldier. At this moment it has spread throughout the sect like a tornado, but they all only know that it is the peerless Tianjiao. I don't know if it is you, only Lord Du Feng and Lord Lu Feng and a few henchmen know that Lord Lu Feng is now happy and full of praise for you. I Have to say that senior brother Huang, you are really indifferent to fame and fortune. Huang Jiulong's eyes narrowed slightly. That real peerless Tianjiao was dressed in white and wore a mask, and it seemed that he didn't want others to know his identity. This shows that he is very low-key. Fortunately, this is the case, otherwise I would have been. Sikong, too, got a little closer at this time, rubbed his hands, and smiled with great anticipation. Senior brother Huang, your junior brother, and I really want to see what the holy soldier looks like. I have dreamed of getting the holy soldier in this life. Even if I can't get it, I can get it stained by touching it, and I ask senior brother Huang to take it out for me to see. Huang Jiulong's face changed, and he said angrily, don't look. Such a big killing weapon, how can it be taken out casually, to show people? P.S. Thank you for the blade sent by God Killer yesterday. At the same time, you a peek in the hut. Originally, I planned to brush more materials to forge saint soldiers, but now I don't need to bother so much. I have such a large block of quasi-saint soldiers in my hand, which can be directly used as saint soldier materials. In this way, it is much easier to save trouble. Suchanga looked at the immortal sword in his hand, and his mood was 100 times more comfortable. Although it is easy to brush the system's subsidy, it always takes a little effort to return it. But after this incident, directly obtaining such a quasi-saint soldier, wouldn't there be a lot of materials available? Although it is impossible to dissolve the holy soldier, the method of promotion is also very good. Next, he put away the immortal sword and began to look at the sect masters. Additional reward. The Dan bottle is not large, it is the size of an index finger. The whole body is white and crystalline. There are many blue and white porcelain patterns at the mouth of the bottle, and there is a sealing mouth on it. Suchanga took the mouth away, and suddenly felt fragrant, and saw that it was filled with a bottle of jade-colored liquid. Just sniffed it lightly, and suddenly felt clear in his mind, refreshed, and the meridians in his body were indescribably happy. Gongzi, this is Kunlun chalcedony liquid. On the side, Su Lianyue was resting on the small bed, glanced at it from afar, and said. Suchanga turned his head and asked, what is the use of this thing? Su Xianyue said with a smile, this thing is the natural chalcedony produced by Kunlun Mountain, containing extremely rich heaven and earth essence. If you absorb a drop, you can replenish a large amount of heaven and earth aura, not to mention such a full bottle. Speaking of this, she smiled and guessed, Gongzi, the sect master rewarded you with this kind of treasure, probably because he felt that you had made great efforts in this task, and you had to make up for it. Before the words were finished, Suchanga took her into his arms, and said with a smile, the two of us don't know who is doing the big thing. Although he provided all the massive spiritual energy in his body, it was always the people who contributed to it. If it weren't for the fact that she had already preached the Holy Realm in the primeval period and was familiar with the road, this time her cultivation would not have reached the Holy Realm so smoothly. More importantly, her divine soul was originally a saint's divine soul, so this time it was twice as effective with half the effort, and although there was a lot of spiritual energy, although it was vast, it only allowed her to maintain her cultivation for half a quarter of an hour. If it was his own, even if he used all those auras to improve his cultivation, he would not have such a miraculous effect. Master, what about me? What about me? Didn't I contribute? Shao. You suddenly came over, and the will-o-waste rubbed Suchanga's wrist, very dissatisfied, Plus said with disgust. Suchanga smiled heartily, twisted on her little face, and said with a smile. Yes, my family's little devouring has also contributed. Come, this is Qiankuan Tian Gangdan, you two divide it. He took out all the remaining Qiankuan Tian Gang pills and handed them over. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2AA54Z8B. Both of them contributed, naturally they had to make up for it, and these elixirs just came in handy here. As for this bottle of Kunlun Chalcedony liquid, although it is powerful enough, it is always returned to upgrade it again, and then use it to brush better treasures. Xiao Yu and Su Lianyue divided these Qiankuan Tiangang pills, and then immediately took them, and suddenly there was a sound of spiritual energy being transported to the meridians in his body, and the sound was like a big river rolling, and finally precipitated in the Dantian. Here, Suchanga ran the quenching spirit secret technique and began to remove impurities from the Kunlun Chalcedony liquid. Sweep away at a glance. I saw that in this small bottle of Chalcedony liquid, there were quite a few impurities, full of 832 impurities. These are all impurities doped with Chalcedony liquid during the formation process, including air impurities and dew impurities. Varied. These impurities are absorbed into the body at first glance, and they will have no effect on the human body for a while. But the human body breathes every day, every moment will absorb new impurities. For a long time, all kinds of impurities accumulate more and more, and eventually form various diseases, hidden dangers. If all these impurities are removed, the quality of this bottle of Kunlun Chalcedony will immediately rise and transform into a supreme treasure without impurities. Suchanga didn't talk nonsense, and lightly tapped a finger on the Dan bottle. In an instant, a zhao sounded, and wisps of gray gas emerged from the Dan bottle, converging towards his fingertips, one after another. In just a few breaths, the impurities on Suchanga's fingertips gathered more, and finally formed a drop of black liquid. The liquid is pure black and pitch black as ink. Ugh! With a wave of his hand, he threw the liquid out. Then, when I looked at this bottle of Kunlun Chalcedony, I saw that the turquoise liquid inside was all transformed into pure white crystal water. Like a crystal clear stream, without impurities, clear and transparent. And that fragrance is more and more immersive. Next, he was ready to give this object to the beautiful master. I'll go out for a bit and come back soon. Suchanga turned his head and explained. Well, our two sisters are at home waiting for Gongzi to come back. Su Lianyue said softly. Suchanga pushed the door out. Along a mountain road, he walked towards the courtyard of the front mountain. It's just that before I got to the place, I suddenly saw the beautiful master flying over, with a smile on her pretty face, just like Xiao Beixing was newly married.